So starting with week 2 session 1, focusing on the snatch. So many things before we get into the actual exercises. So here I am starting my warm up with positional practice, making sure I'm hitting the bar at exactly the point it needs to be, the alignment of my torso along with the bar, etc, etc. So many different things. And now some kind of background to whatever I did today, whatever I've been doing. I do have some genetic risk factors for diabetes, for coronary heart diseases, and recently I noticed my weight had gone up. Although I'm mostly into low carbs, at the end of the day, the quantum of food, the calories, call it whatever you want, will matter. And I guess I've been overeating, stress eating, which is my weight cropped up again without me realizing it. I first noticed it during my weightlifting videos when, embarrassingly enough, my tummy was popping out, and that's why for a while now I've started cutting down my calories. It's just a small 400 to 500 calorie deficit, but along with my regular fasting and everything. So maybe, just maybe, that is what was leading to today's exhaustion. Another reason for today's exhaustion could be the high amount of volume which I did with the lighter weights, and I did that deliberately just to get the pathways correct. For example, Greg Everett snatch form, which I'm seeing right now, I did it multiple times just to get all of those movements correct. The technical warm up, the pathway warm up which I did before this, again it required me to do a lot of sets with the pipe and then the barbell itself. So not just that, even of the following up videos, dip snatches, snatch balances, etc. I did a lot many more sets, obviously a lot more than what I've included in video, and maybe the calorie deficit and or right, also a lot of that extra volume with just a barbell, right, just exhausted me. And of course I was running late today, so today's session isn't exactly what I would want it to be, but again, not a bad session as it is. So there you go, I'm in the snatch balance portion of my warm up, of my technical warm up. It's a work in progress. Now another thing which I did today, no matter what my exercise was, no matter what exercise my coach had programmed for me, and again, hey Bob, how are you doing? Thanks for the programming. No matter what exercise my coach had programmed for me, I started everything with the bar off the floor and practicing my positions, practicing the correct pathway. So even with the pressing snatch balance, I did with the pipe, empty barbell, went to 30, slightly heavier than 30 also. And now it's not a pressing snatch balance, it's just going to be snatch balances. So one thing which I've been struggling with is the overhead squat position, just dropping down at the bottom of snatch. And you know what, all this while for a very long time I've been blaming my shoulder girdle lack of mobility, when it's honestly not that. See, one thing which I've been teaching as a part of my exercise science background, which I've learned, which I've been teaching, is between the glenohumeral joint and the hip joint. The glenohumeral joint is one of the most mobile joints out there, and the hip joint comparatively is very inflexible, very immobile. So it really didn't make sense for me, or at least now that I've recalled that particular point, doesn't make sense for me to keep spending so much time in stretching my shoulder girdle, all the structures around that. So now in this particular miss, just watch out for my torso position when I catch the bar in the snatch balance, and what happens when I try and sit down. Initially, there you go, my torso is straight ahead, and that's a position I need to be in to rack that bar perfectly overhead. Now I struggle with that particular squatting movement because my torso is not able to transition easily from that upright position to a slightly hinged position, which you need to be in a squat. There you go, and that's why I missed it. So continuing with what I was talking about, right, I really need to start working on my hip joint, my knee joint, my ankle joint, and I need to start changing my squat. So even with just a tall snatch, you can see, look at my torso at the bottom of that overhead squat position. With the pipe, it really doesn't make any difference, but with the heavier weights and everything, no. If I really want to lock out that heavy barbell at the top, my torso needs to be a lot more upright, and that's why I need to start changing my squats. I need to be a lot more upright, basically do more of the so-called high bar positions, right? Some dip snatches, then hang snatches after this. All right, so you see, the only time I'm able to sit down comfortably is when I instantly start changing my torso angle. See, upright, I caught it upright, and then I'm hinging forward, and from the knee, there you go. Because my torso angle is not set in place, I'm struggling with that. Now honestly, this is not an exercise which Bob had programmed for me today. As I said, I was running late, just too exhausted with all of that volume and everything, and hence I just wrapped it up with whatever I could do.